Welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast. There's no fancy intros tonight. We've got a scoreless draw and a set of accounts to run through. So welcome to the podcast equivalent of a Tesco meal deal, which has a plain ham sandwich, ready salted crisps and a bottle of water. I'm your host, Robbie, and firstly I'm joined by Scott Fleming. How are you getting on, Scott?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Obviously, as you say, it wasn't too much to discuss for that one last night, but I said before the game I would have snapped your hand off for 0-0, so I was kind of glad when the full-time whistle went. Point closer to the playoff spot for fourth, but also just kind of keeps us in there with the sort of fifth, sixth positions as well.
Yeah, we'll come on to that later on. Blair Hopcroft, how you doing, Blair?
Very well, mate. Very well. I actually quite enjoyed last night, I have to say. I thought it was one of the games where it wasn't massively full of quality, to be fair, but it was quite a good kind of tussle, I thought. Quite enjoyed it.
We're giving you a soapbox to shout that from and try and preach to the masses, because I feel like you might be a wee bit on your own with that.
I might be on my own.
Yeah, well, we've also got Allan Douglas-Bunn as well. How you doing, Allan?
I'm alright, yeah. Good to be on after being away being off the podcast for a few weeks now. But yeah, I say, as the guys have said, decent result last night. You'd have absolutely taken it a point before the game. So, when you're getting the point you want, who really cares about the quality? Like, take the point and run.
Yeah, well, I mean, Livingston, they were something, I think it was 10 games unbeaten going into this one, so they've obviously extended that to 11, and that'll be the last time that we play them this season until the playoffs, of course. But, yes. To focus on the first matter that came out, so even before the game yesterday, some sort of positive news came out, sent out initially to Club 1883 members, but yeah, it's just regarding the accounts, which was the headline news of a £48,000 profit for the Rovers over the last year. Blair, what did you make of that, seeing that come through?
I thought it was genuinely, I was really impressed. I think there's a case that a few people will probably make that number could have and should have maybe been a bit bigger or whatever, but when you compare it to the year before and the loss that was made, and then you compare the kind of finer details, things like the Scottish Cup run in the year that we made a loss involved us going to Ibrox, and in the year that we had the profit, we were knocked out by Livingston. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I think it's really healthy. I think it's actually a really nice marker of how far the club have come on, and how far this board has brought the club on. I know we'll go into details, but we've got to talk about kiosks tonight.
Well, yeah, that will, again, it'll come up. I'll make sure that we can pry through the document page by page if we need to. So, yeah, just Scott, for yourself, you obviously watch for overseas over in Holland, but in terms of one of the things that came out was the sort of commercial revenue. Do you think that's a big sort of kudos to the folk behind the scenes, the people that are working on the commercial side, that there's been such a turnaround in terms of both things like the hospitality, you look at things like the kits and the way that it's been handled over the last year?
Absolutely. I mean, I must say, like, I've been back since the new owners have came in anyway, and the new board and stuff. I think I've been to maybe about 10 home games or something off the top of my head. And just the vibe about the place is just a little bit better these days, and just also it seems whilst everybody's working harder to make it a better place, it also seems quite relaxed at the same time. So I can imagine it's probably quite a good place to work. The ladies in the office doing all the ticketing and stuff like that, but also you see Grace is doing a lot of work behind the scenes in terms of all the contacts behind the scenes with sending out emails to Club 1883 members, but also to people out with the club as well. And then obviously you've got likes Graham that's doing a great job with the hospitality as well. I mean, he looks like the busiest man going on a match day. It's unbelievable. He's jumping from room to room to speak to folk, but you can tell he loves doing it as well.
Yeah.
Like, that is, see, when that position came up, I went, that's the position for, like, it was so his role. Like, that's the sort of thing that he loves doing. So I know that he had filled in.
Talking shit for a living.
I know that he'd done it a few times, like stepping in before. So like the fact that he'd done it before, I think it was an easy move for the club as well. But
at least he gets paid for it. We do it for none.
But in terms of everything else, I think it just seems like a much better place to work, and the fact that we're getting a little bit of profit on top of that, I think's just brilliant. I know that we'll probably talk about it a bit more, but I think the worst thing coming out of it is just there's been a lot of rumours this year that we don't know how it's going to look this time next year. I think this Celtic Cup game is going to have played a big part in it, I think, for what we talk about it going forward, because I think the way it's going on the pitch this season, we're nowhere near where I think some people expected us to be. Yeah. I still hope that the board might have thought, we might get fourth and not aimed for winning the league or second, because that's a massive drop-off as we've already seen with the prize money. So, but for now, I'm really happy with what I've seen and what I read with all the profit and loss stuff that came out, and I hope that it's more of the same going forward, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that even with the new board from sort of day one, you just felt that it was all sort of, particularly in the beginning, everyone was sort of like pulling in the same direction with it. And the way that things were headed, I remember going to that sort of volunteers day that they had held in the Raith suite, just getting everyone together, just asking for ideas, what could be done better, try to make sure that people felt valued. And across the piece, there's been so much change when you think about it as well, Allan. So just to come to you, do you think it was really sort of hard to quantify? I know Scott's obviously mentioned the specifics, so we've had a lot of things that have happened since the beginning of this season that aren't going to be included in this sort of the details that have been put out. But do you think as well, even last year, it's hard to quantify, given that you look at things like, for instance, the changes within the main stand, sort of how the club's developed over that period, that might not carry on to this year as well?
Yeah, but I mean, there's other things to think about. That there are some pretty big costs that are going to be in this year's books. In terms of the new hospitality suite, the changes to the manager's office, the coach's office, the laundry, and the cladding, and all these things that are going to be in the expenses for this year. That might see us kind of knocked back down into making a bit of a loss, but they're all things like the cladding are about kind of weatherproofing the stand going forward, as well as making it look a bit better. Things like the hospitality, it's about generating more income. We need to be you can't be sitting here relying on a sugar daddy coming in and ploughing money into it. We've not got more tranches to come or anything like that. We're not going to just. You can't rely on dodgy poker players or anything coming in and spending their money. You need to be sustainable. We need to be able to generate enough money to run the club at the level we want to be at, from our fans, from visiting fans, and from the general public in Kirkcaldy who don't even care about the Rovers. That new function suite, you can almost guarantee it's going to be getting filled up for birthday parties and all sorts of nonsense throughout the year. It's about getting the club on a good financial footing, and you can't help but be impressed by the fact that the first full year of the new board has seen us make a profit for the first time in who knows how long. And there's a number of even things like the Celtic Cup money you've talked about. There's going to be money coming for Fulham for Kieran Bowie. There's other kind of little things in there that will help the cause for this season. And if we can sneak up into fourth and get a couple of playoff games, then even better, But even if we do this time next year dip back into making a loss, as long as it's not horrific, then I think we'll be able to kind of see the reasoning for it. It'll be things like we've spent X £1,000 on the main stand and things like that.
Yeah, I think you'll get a lot of questions next year as well with sort of the changes, because obviously with Ian Murray leaving, people will naturally look to that as being a potential large expense. It does make me wonder, though, just with the club moving forward, I'm really keen to see sort of how the next year does pan out and sort of where the focus turns to, what their sort of focus is going to be moving forward next, because it
We're
has...
saving a CEO salary as well, Michael.
Well, and the rest of that as well. Right, Blair, you asked for it. You're going to get it now. Kiosks. So the subsection of the document that is about kiosks, I've got it in front of me, and it says, this is one of the biggest successes in terms of revenue, increasing kiosk revenue by 1,325%. So 2022-23 season, we pulled in £12,000. That's now up to £171,058.
That's incredible, man.
Now I'm just
We love
going
our food.
It's not quite as transparent as it appears, in all fairness.
Yes.
But it's a big selling point, isn't it? Like, do you know what I mean? Come and buy a double biscuit. We've made 170. They've not made 171,000.
That's revenue, isn't it? That's not.
Yeah.
We've got wages.
It's revenue.
You have to buy the food in the first place. So.
But the point is that the previous model appears to have been that somebody has paid £1,000 a month to sell as much as they want, and we've made nothing else off of it. So the revenue was £12,000, and granted, there was probably no expenditure on that. But you're not telling me if they've brought in £171,000 worth of revenue for double biscuits, pies, and bovril, that they're not making a good whack of profit. The whole, I mean, everybody always talks about food as restaurants and all the rest of it, pubs selling food. Food is where you make your money. You didn't make any money on alcohol because of the amount of duty and everything that's on it. That food's where the profit is. Like, then that's the thing I was saying about the board coming in and making changes. It's like 12 grand to 171 grand. It's a pretty good headline.
Yeah,
it's I could get it right up to all those folk on Pie and Bovril who like to say, you've sold more pies. Well, there you go. We're really
it was a funny post, that, because it was just, you could see the point the guy was trying to make, but it was just worded like so poorly that it did actually become a meme. But yeah, I think with it before, again, I think that's the thing with like, and this isn't having a go at anyone, but I feel like it was before there was probably a mutual understanding between, I'm not sure whether it was Mario Kaira or someone else who had the catering company before, where it was kind of like, okay, you have it, this is like the set fee, and then the club will get money back in as and when it needs it. Again, it's one of those things as a supporter you're never really going to know, but it does make it quite an easy sell for the club when they're trying to put out documents like this to sort of showcase this is how we're moving forward.
If you spend a bit of time, you can actually go into the document. I mean, they've not put everything right side by side, so you do have to spend a bit of time and go through it, but the expenditure is further down. And I was just having a look there. So they've roped catering in with policing and security, and it's within overall match day costs. But our overall match day costs have gone up by 58,909. So if we are basically spending, let's call it 60 grand more, and we're making 150 grand more in the kiosk revenue, like, I mean, there's money there. Do you know what I mean? And it's all the way through. You look at the money they're making on merchandise. I mean, by my pretty basic maths, it's about 70 grand more profit this year from the merchandise and kit sales in the previous year, than it is from the year before. About 70 grand up. It's brilliant.
I'm trying to even remember the kit, the away
we
kit.
We did have a bra yellow kit, to be fair.
But that's the thing, that was the yellow one, and it did sell well, and it sold in Gran Canaria.
Spain buying it and all thing.
But that's it's probably a tale though about like the idea of putting a story behind your kit is something that I know that the club had been keen on before, and they'd sort of spoken about. And again, it's such a unique story that you can get that implemented.
I remember as well, for years and years, if you didn't get your kit by September, October, you weren't getting it, because it wasn't coming back in, because the amount of money they have to spend to get another order of kits. So, do you know what I mean? It ends up this astronomical fee, and then they end up with like 30 or 40 kits left at the end of the season, and they've got to sell them off cheap, and they end up losing money. But actually, to capitalise on it and recognise that there was this like other market that they could sell to, and they'll capitalise on it, again, they deserve a lot of credit. And that's not just the board, that's Laura and do you know what I mean, Graham and everybody else in that office that are doing that work. Like, they deserve a lot of credit.
I think that's the big thing, actually, is kind of, without wanting to dwell on the pies, albeit looking at me, clearly that's an issue for me. Looking at that, there's probably a good chance that the reason we had the contract we had before is because nobody in the club had the time or inclination to organise buying all the food and getting the staff in and actually running the whole thing. So it's like, you know what, we'll get 12 grand a year and no have to do anything for it. Whereas now some people in the club are having to actually, speak to Stuart's the bakers and the sweetie people and the hot dog people and kind of arrange ordering the food and actually get staff in and trained and all that kind of stuff. So folk are actually having to organise all of that. And these are probably things that don't actually get included in the cost of it, because it's folk that are already working at the club. But the job everyone's doing behind the scenes it's just brilliant. It's really, really impressive. And probably a lot of that's volunteers as well. But, the people who actually work full-time at the club, I can't sing their praises highly enough for this kind of stuff.
There was maybe a few surprises as well in the document, on top of sort of the areas that we'd already probably been a bit documented before. League gate revenues up from 213,000 up to 451 grand, Scott. Just again, does that kind of show just the importance in terms of having a bit of a rethink? Because I know that before that they'd sort of tried to. There has always been a question about Rovers about how we can break through that barrier of increasing the gates. And last season really seemed to crack it, particularly with offering sort of season tickets to fans under 12 and encouraging families along. So how important do you think that's been?
I think it's been massive, to be fair. I mean, even in the 20 years that I've been kind of going to Rovers games and whatever like that, like I've been at times where it's been a core of like 1,500 basically every week, and it was the same folk every week. Maybe at Christmas time you would then get up to closer to 2,000 because there's a few folk home seeing family and whatever. But to see, especially in basically since the boards came in, it's went up to like 3,900 to 4,000 on average every week now, which it's mental to see how quickly it just almost doubled. Like, you wonder also where the hell these people were beforehand. It wasn't like a gradual month by month going up a couple hundred. It was like literally bang. It was straight, like almost doubled. And I was impressed, and I was more impressed the fact that we actually held at that number for the full season. It also helps the fact that we had a very successful season on the park. But I think we would have still seen a very healthy crowd no matter what anyway. I think everybody just seen what was going on within the club. There was clearly a bit of ambition as well from the club as well at the time, saying what they were wanting to do on and off the park. A few decent signings as well helped along with that. And as I say, like, the results on the park are always going to boost your crowd. But I think going forward, again, this season, it's maybe not quite been the 4,000 every time this season, but it's still, you're talking 3.5 most games still, which I think in the Championship is probably still in the top 4 in terms of, well, if you're wanting to do your Falkirk crowd wank sort of thing. But it's other than that, I think we can't really complain with how it's been going. I think it's been pretty impressive because, we were all there in League One watching us against Stranraer in front of like 1,100 folk. Like, it's and this is all with like Hamilton in the league as well. These sort of teams only bring like 50, 60 folk or something, and we're still getting 3,500 through the door. So, I hope it keeps going, to be honest.
Yeah, we'd maybe say that I think that over the last few weeks, it does feel like it's kind of dropped a little bit, but then I think that's sort of just with the way that things are for now. But it can go either way, and I can't see it dropping back down to that sort of 1,400 level or so anytime soon if they keep doing what they're doing. Blair, Scott kind of used a bit of a phrase there, but just to sort of goes into my next question of how hard do you think it's going to be to sort of replicate this going forward and make this a consistent thing? Is that kind of the $1 million question?
I mean, it's hard because they're never going to get that level of growth again. Like, do you know what I mean, to go from where they were to where they appear to be has been a massive jump. And the absolute truth of it is, when you have a jump like that, your job is not to jump again, but your job is to sustain it. So sustaining it doesn't mean having more profit this year or bigger profit. Do you know what I mean? You've got to kind of almost take each section kind of separately. Like if they decide to spend 300 grand doing up the stadium this year, and then therefore make a £200,000 loss the year after, and it comes in the books, and you look at it and you go, well, actually, it's sustainable because, do you know what I mean? They're building that in, and this is what they're doing, and this is the game plan. And ultimately, you've got to spend money sometimes to make money. So it's not a business where we are going to turn a profit every year. I just don't think that's logical. I don't think it's feasible. And it also depends who's paying for bits and pieces, because there's also, these are the finances for the football club, is my understanding. They're nothing to do with the stadium company, so they're not Starks Park property.
Yeah.
And how much of the stadium development is Raith Rovers and how much of it is Starks Park property, God only knows. It's a web. But do you know what? You make hay while the sun shines, and have been following this team for a long time, and it gets shit. It gets really, really shit. And it can get shit for a long time. Long time. So do you know what? When it's good, like, some of us need to just take a wee step back and smell the roses and enjoy it for a wee bit, I think, because the books might be crap next year and they might be better the year after. But, like, do you know what I mean? They're good now. So, yeah, kudos to the board, and hopefully it's a sign of things to come, that we have actually grown as a club and we can kind of kick on from it. Like I say, whether that means that we spend a little bit more this year and maybe don't make the same profit, so be it. We know we're not going to have the same prize money. We're almost certainly not going to have the playoff gates. So there's already a drop there, but then you've got the Scottish Cup gate, which probably fills that void. And then your prize money is going to be down. So they're almost certainly going to have less money coming in this season compared to last, just by the league position, more than anything else. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a fragile ecosystem, isn't it?
Totally.
With Scottish football at this level. The difference between second and you look down the leagues, even the wee intangible bits, like we got a 36 grand trading fee for Reagan Hendry. Like,
Totally.
even now he's still assisting us, which is quite remarkable.
Love him.
But yeah, I would hesitate to add as well that the full accounts are going to be up on Company's House very shortly, because this was only sort of the announcement from Club 83. Can't see it being too much different, to be honest, other than the club on Rovers' side breaking it down for the fans more in terms of an ins and outs in terms of each area, because I think it'll make a lot more sense in a sort of packaged document as the way that they've done it. There was actually a game of football last night, so I suppose we might actually need to talk about that now. Aye. Let's get on to that. Made the trip to the, what is it called now? The new cab? The Set Fair Arena, whatever it is.
Home of the Set Fair Arena.
Home of the Set Fair Arena.
Aye.
Which,
Right.
by the way, can I just, before we go any further, caused me no end of panic when I brought my ticket up as I was walking in the away end, and the ticket says home. I'm like, can we not have the word home in the name of your stadium, please?
We still need to get an update actually from Graham about how Cammy got on, because he was meant to be getting from Livy South to the stadium in about 5 minutes, which
Aye, no chance.
I don't know if he's taking the spirit
He
of a
wouldn't have
Kentman
missed
runner
much.
there, but aye. Yeah, so with the game, pre-match, 2 changes straight from the off. Ewan Murray and Callum Fordyce returned at centre-back, Allan, to replace Liam Dick and Josh Wallen. What did you make of that changes? And do you think, were you expecting maybe more changes, or just along those lines from Robson?
The changes that were made, I understand, because by bringing those 2 guys in, but keeping, then having Doherty and Dick as your wing backs, there's a lot more presence in that back line, a lot more height, which against Livingston is very much normally required. So I totally understood the reasoning for that. And you're always justified making a change in defence when you've been pumped 4-0 in the game before that. I was surprised there weren't more changes. I thought there might have been some changes in the forward areas. Pollock and Gullen have played a lot of football in the last couple of weeks. I thought they might have freshened it up there with maybe Aidan Marsh coming in. I wasn't expecting Lewis Vaughan to come back in at the start lineup. I don't want to rush him back. I think he's far too important for the rest of the season for us to risk injuring him against a physical team, shall we say. Not necessarily unfairly, but they've got presence and they throw it about a bit. So you don't necessarily want to risk Lewis Vaughan for 90 minutes in that game if he's not fully up to it. But I thought there might have been more changes than the ones that were made. Albeit, I totally understand the logic behind the ones that he did make.
Yeah, and Scott, just with yourself, were you quite surprised that he kept the front line or the same, or was it just given the Lewis Vaughan's obviously only just recently returned, or were you maybe hoping for Aidan Marsh to maybe make an appearance there right from the start?
Well, I think in the last podcast, I think I did have Marsh in for one of Pollock or Gullen, whichever one he would want to change. I thought it was quite interesting. A mate of mine actually was at the game, messaged me during the game wondering if Aidan Marsh was carrying a knock or something, because apparently he went to warm up, ran once and just went straight back to the bench, like along the line back to the goal, back to the corner flag, and then just went whilst the rest of them were still warming up. So he kind of thought that maybe he was carrying a knock, and that's also maybe why he didn't come on last night. But obviously we don't know. But yeah, I don't know what it is. He clearly likes Gullen and Pollock together in terms of they give you, Pollock especially gives you plenty of energy. Gullen's obviously able to hold the ball up a little bit better these days, but when he's up against like Danny Wilson and McGowan, they're both two very, very like decent centre halves at this level. They've both played much higher than this level as well, and so they'll know all the tricks in the book with whatever Gullen tries to throw their way. But I think I was hoping to get some sort of change up front, but I was also happy that he did make a couple of changes to freshen up a few things. I was a wee bit surprised that Liam Dick was actually one of the ones that came out. I thought if he's going to change anything on that left side, he might have taken out Stevenson, again, purely for height reasons. He might have put Dicko at left wing back and still played the same back three that he did play. And then we would have had five guys at the back who could all head of the ball and challenge at set pieces, basically. But all in all, I was fairly happy with the team set up going forward. I'm kind of glad we've now got 8-9 days off to kind of recuperate. Obviously, we'll go into it, but it was a bit frustrating to see Bruni going down so early as well. So I hope it's not one of these reoccurring calf injuries that he keeps picking up this season, because if it is, I fear that might be his season done. Because
he had a lot of strapping on. A lot of strapping in the warm-up.
9 games to go now.
Yeah.
I don't see, if it is that reoccurring calf injury and he missed he's in 2 different spells, he's missed a good chunk of games. So I'm not sure, maybe if we were pushing for playoffs, he would try to get back for that. But I hope it's not that, but we'll just need to play it by what the club say going forward.
You just made me realise, actually, Scott, that I was talking utter mince when I was going through the changes, because in my justification of making the changes at the back, I had it in my head that Dick did go to left wing back, but no, he dropped out completely.
He did finish there. So you were technically not wrong, Allan.
But all the listeners or viewers who are sitting there going, what's this idiot talking about? Dick got dropped.
A very literal meaning of start as you mean to go on there. We'll take it. We'll take it. In
my defence, the stream was really terrible that I was watching it on because I had kids' swimming lessons, so I didn't make it to the game. So yeah, the stream was terrible. So Stevenson and Dick kind of looked like.
Not that anyone would condone these streams.
No, not at all. No, perfectly legitimate.
Quality assurance. So, yeah, Blair, just with Livingston, we all know what they're like. Do you think it was kind of really just horses for courses in terms of the way that Barry Robson set up?
Yeah, but they didn't. It was weird. Like, we set up for big bad Livingston to throw their 6'9" centre forwards at us, and he dropped them all. They were all sitting on the bench.
Right.
He had all the wee boys on. Yeah, I think I genuinely think Robson did the right thing in terms of the defence. Although, yeah, I'm maybe alone in this as well. But for me, Callum Fordyce took about 50 minutes to warm up last night for me. I thought he was genuinely rotten in the first half, and he seemed no fault of his own. He was just a mile off the pace of the game. Couldn't get into it, couldn't get there. And for all the changes he made in the defence, as soon as Bruni goes down, there's clearly something wrong with
Sean Byrne.
Sean Byrne, thank you. The name escaped me for a second. Clearly something wrong with Sean Byrne because they never brought him on. And he never brought him on at any point. So there's clearly, he's carrying something. He's obviously no fit. The fact that he put Mullen back into right wing back and moved Doherty into the centre of midfield, it just undid. I mean, we all said it before the game, the one change you had to make, you cannot have Mullen at right wing back with them tubing balls to the wide left and him having to go up like for headers. It just isn't going to work. And within 20 minutes, he was forced to do it. So I think Robson did.
Can you pass a ball?
Oh my God. They were singing his name last night. I'm like, is that ironic? Because he is rotten.
They were singing quite a lot. They were singing anti-Fife propaganda songs, which is just seems a bit strange. Nobody really cares about Livingston. You're just in the middle of nowhere, just roundabouts. Nobody bothers about you. Anyway.
Yeah, but I thought, I thought it was one of the games where he needed to make changes. But, I mean, he's been getting a fair bit of stick about not making changes. And quite rightly, I listened to the post-match after the Queen's game, and I agreed with everything that was said. But I'm not entirely sure he's got as many options as we think he's got. Like, we're not there every day, and we didn't see training, and we didn't see what players are carrying. I mean, he played Bruni last night, and when I say he had a lot of strapping on, he had that, that kinesthetic tape stuff. He had it up both sides of both calves and up into his hamstrings on both legs. There's a lot of strapping on him last night. So he's clearly not fit. And Bruni's no been himself since he came back. He's no been back to what he was. So he's clearly carrying something. So Matthews is doing all the running in the midfield. Burns clearly no there yet. Doherty comes in, it puts Mullen back at right wing back, and then you're back to basically almost the same 11 you started with last week, barring the centre halves. And then, so you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't.
So I was just going to add on to the Fordyce thing. I think the only thing you would say, because I also agree, I thought first half he was a bit off it, but I was kind of willing to give him a bit of the benefit of doubt, just purely to the fact that he's played 90 minutes once since the end of October. That's
what I'm saying, not his fault.
It's fine, not training every day, but it's not a game. I can totally get that it probably did take him half a game to kind of get going, because when you've played, in the one game he played, he wasn't meant to play. He got called into the team at 10-3 down at Ayr. So, and that went well.
He's been really ill apparently as well. I was reading somewhere or hearing somewhere that he'd had norovirus, had been really, really ill over the kind of Christmas period.
He was really ill end of December.
Taking it out.
He'd lost a stone or something, which when you're a professional athlete, you didn't really have a spare stone to lose.
Yeah, particularly when you're a centre back. And Blair, what did you make of Jordan Doherty? Obviously, he moves into the middle of the park. What did you make of that and his performance in there, just in general?
Jury's out for me. I thought he did okay in spells. I thought he did fine with the ball at his feet. He did fine in possession. It took him a wee bit. It can't be easy. You start a game at right wing back and then all of a sudden you're playing defensive midfield. It did take him a wee bit of time to get into it, but I thought he grew into it pretty well. Certainly capable. He's good with the ball at his feet, and he's a good tackler and all that kind of stuff. There was 2 or 3 times, particularly in the first half, where he kind of showed a man as if he was trying to show him outside and ended up showing him inside, and kind of didn't quite get his foot in the ball the way he should have done, or his first touch let him down or whatever. But as I say, you go from playing in a position where the game's in front of you to a position where the game's in front of you and behind you and beside you on both sides. Like, it takes a wee bit of time, I think, to get up to speed, but no alarm bells at all for me. And actually, I have to say, I thought Mullen did better than I was expecting. The issue, again, to go back to the Fordyce thing, the issue that he had is that he had Fordyce on the right. So when Doherty went off, you had Mullen with Fordyce, and it was so lopsided because he had Hanlon playing on the left of the three, which I still don't understand, I have to say. That was the one change that I didn't understand. I know he's left-footed, but he's been doing so well in the middle of the three. It seemed really odd to move him out, but the defence did just feel a wee bit lopsided, and you could see they were targeting it. And Martindale talked about it. They were getting no joy down their right, our left. So they just kept going long. And that Montano, he's rotten with the ball at his feet, but he's good in the air. There was 2 or 3 really good headers that he played into the middle of the park from out wide.
Yeah, I think with Doherty, it's important to remember as well that, I mean, it's 2 games and he's played 3 different positions there. Because he was centre back as well against Queen's Park, so he's really getting the Scott McGill treatment at the moment of just basically wherever he can play, he's getting put in. So might be an option up top. We never know. But we'll wait and see. So yeah, the first half obviously begins. As you've touched on, you mentioned it already, Scott. The Scott Brown injury. So obviously frustrating to see that. But then just in general, sort of really limited opportunities. I mean, Raith TV only spent 1 minute and 30 seconds in terms of their first half highlights, was it? I think you were saying earlier on. I think the only real one that stood out was sort of Jamie Gullen had one that was kind of a cross goal, but then it just came out the other side. Just your thoughts in general on the first half and just the performance.
I thought the Rovers highlights definitely summed up that first half. There wasn't a lot going on. So by the time it was 2 minutes in the highlights, so we're already shooting the other way. But I think it was Pollock that ended up out wide on that right hand side to get it fired across to what would have been Gullen, and then Gullen obviously had that sort of free kick he put into the box as well. And then I think Martindale said in his interview as well that Livy just didn't do much in the first half. He wasn't worried about like us because we also didn't really create loads, but that he was just worried about the fact that they weren't creating enough. So I think the second half, like straight away out of the blocks, it was a much different half. Actually, I think the first 15-20 minutes, I thought that we joked at half time last night saying this is exactly what happened at Ayr v Queen's Park the night before. Nothing happened first half, and then look at what the full-time score was and what went on. And we joked about 3-2. See the way that the second half started, I thought, there's goals in this game because it was just how open it was. But we just, I think both teams just just something in the final third wasn't clicking, and I think we were just going into that game hoping that we'd get something out of it, because if we'd gone in and lost that game again, even if it was 1-0, like you're then going 3 defeats in a row, no scored in 3 games in a row, it's starting to look a bit bleak. Mm-hmm. It's now been flipped and it's gone, that's 4 clean sheets in the last 7 games, whereas that's a positive, because there was so many away games especially that we've been honking and looked like we're never going to get anything away for home. So to get a point away at Livy and to be solid as we were, especially in the first half, but also second half, we had to hold on a bit longer and a bit more because they were kind of putting a bit of pressure on us. But I think overall we defended pretty well.
Well, what we'll do is we will take a break now and we'll come back, have a chat about the second half, and it's a little bit more eventful this. So here's a word from our sponsors.
Blair.
Yes, mate.
You're a man.
Yes.
And you have thoughts and feelings and emotions.
Yes.
Are you good at talking about all that stuff?
Well, I try my best, but I don't know. Probably not as much as I should.
I'm the same. I feel better after getting stuff like that off my chest, but I don't do it anywhere near often enough. Have you heard about Andy's Man Club?
They're brilliant. They create a safe space for men to sit down and talk about the important stuff. And they do it right across the country as well.
Yeah, exactly. They've got more than 200 meetings across the UK, and it's every Monday night at 7 o'clock, including one at Starks Park.
And if anyone wants more information on it, they can go to andysmanclub.co.uk or search for Andy's Man Club on Facebook. It's okay to talk, and now we're going to get back to talking about the Rovers.
Okay, welcome back. And we move into the second half there, Blair. Really the first test for, is it Jerome Pryor and the goals for Livingston? A sort of cross come shot from Jimmy Gullen, which he had to palm over the bar. Do you think that was meant at all? Do you think he's just going for the cross there? And just really the first sight to go for Rovers?
Yeah, I think it's one of those that, I mean, if you ask him, he'll tell you he was shooting. But I think it's one of those where you're putting the ball into an area, but you want it to be on target. Do you know, it's one of those the worst case scenario is everybody misses it and it just kind of floats into the goal. But I think it was Mullen that had made the run. He did a power of running again last night. And I genuinely thought Jamie Gullen last night was brilliant. I thought he absolutely merited being kept in that team. He looked burst for about 2 minutes in and he never stopped running. He just kept going and just kept going. And his delivery from free kicks, I mean, Scott mentioned the one in the first half. It was so nice to see deliveries coming into the box with a bit of pace on them. Like actually making defenders defend. Not floating it up and letting them, hit headers in the air. It was very much kind of bit of pace on the ball and challenging. But I thought, a really good effort. Actually, quite a good save in the end because the keeper I don't know if he lost it in the lights or if he was just scrambling or whatever, but he looked a wee bit nervous, I thought, as the ball came onto the bar. But just another really good performance for Jamie Gullen. Just never ever stops.
Yeah, certainly with Gullen, I don't think anyone ever questions his endeavour.
Totally.
Or his work ethic. He's just one of those players that you know that you're always going to get 100% out of him. I can't ever recall having coming back to any game and saying, Jamie Gullen wasn't pulling his weight there, to say the least. We'll keep the topic the same for you, Allan. Do you think that Barry Robson sort of going into the latter stages of the second half, I know that we sort of speculated that we might not know the full picture in terms of potential injuries, wanting to keep Lewis Vaughan obviously safe, protected from any potential cloggers like Michael Nottingham if he got onto the pitch. Do you think it was right to keep the front two the same, even though they were looking like they were tiring a bit?
I understand giving them 20, 25 minutes, maybe. I think he probably could have made a change earlier than he did, and maybe should have. Livingston had started really coming into it by that point. I mean, we are just really hampered by limited options. I mean, what I would say, I think David Martindale might have made a comment in his post-match about not so much lots of chances, but lots of chances to make chances. And that kind of feels like, watching the highlights, that's what it feels like. We had so many really decent crosses into the box. Like, not like you're saying, why are you crossing it there? There's nobody there. It's more almost like that's where you want people putting the ball. We just didn't have anyone on it. So we were almost creating chances. So I could see why he stuck with it for as long as he did. And as we say, largely it just comes down to lack of options. I mean, that's 2 games now where Marsh hasn't got on the pitch, so I think there almost certainly is something to the thought that maybe he's not 100% fit. And I'm sure Barry Robson would love to have a fit Callum Smith and a fit Jack Hamilton on the bench to say, right, on you go and have a go at them guys, they're tired now. He just doesn't have it. And with the best will in the world, Kai Montague, talented young player, he's not a striker. I'm sure he could probably do it if you asked him to, but we just, to use a good phrase, and apologies to anyone offended by it, and actually I might be stealing Blair's words, where you can only pish with the cock you've got.
I've never said that before in my life, but I like it.
I don't know. Maybe I heard someone say it at work or something. I don't know. I heard someone say it earlier today.
I mean, to be fair, it is a factually true statement. So,
Yeah, very true.
Apologies to anyone who has kids listening.
we'll just sit and dwell on that one for a little bit. The rare, I don't know, I'll need to check the percentages on Spotify for the female listeners that we've got as part of the podcast, but I'm sure they can beg to differ. Anyway, we move on, and the main chance for Rovers in the game, Scott, folks, to Finlay Pollock, a bit of deja vu there, breaking 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper. Just your thoughts on that? Do you think do you think he's maybe in his own head after the weekend, maybe try to go for putting a bit of power into it rather than try to lob the keeper or go round them?
After I watched that obviously seen it on the stream, but then watched the highlights back again this morning. I think when I watched the highlights again this morning, I definitely think it's in his head of, oh well, I tried to chip the goalie on Saturday and I messed it up, so I'm just going to try and basically just stick it. It was almost like he was trying to go for like that sort of gap that's kind of just, if the goalie comes out to spread himself, it's like in between his arm and his sort of hip sort of area, and he's just tried to go for that, and to be fair, the keeper's made a decent save, but I do think, again, if that's a Gullen, Vaughan, one of them sort of players, they're probably scoring the 2 chances that he's missed in the last few days, but I do also
just
think...
on that, sorry, just before you go too much further, just on that exact point, I disagree. I think a fit Finlay Pollock scores it too. I think if he's not played 7,000 minutes in the last month, he probably scores it as well. Because actually, the goal he scored at Hamilton was that. The goal he scored against Hamilton the first time was that. Sorry, back to your rant, but I'm with you.
It is like funny you meant. I mean, to be fair, he maybe just likes playing Hamilton. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I think
that's true,
it's. I was actually going to say that Pollock he's a player that I think that if he's got too much time to think about what he needs to do, I worry about that. But then when it's a bit more instinctive and just it's more, his game's about pace anyway. So like it's more just, if something's happening really quickly, he seems to be able to handle it pretty well. But see, if he's got time to think about it, it looks like he panics a wee bit about it and just overthinks it. And yeah, but I mean, at the same time, the keeper's made a decent save, made himself, because he's not a big keeper to be fair, prior,
No.
so he's made himself big enough to save it. But I wonder if maybe the Livy defenders also just put maybe enough pressure behind him just to hurry him slightly, because I think his touch as well was better on Saturday for that chance than it was last night, because he's taken it down on his knee and it's probably gone slightly further ahead than he would have liked, but still.
Yeah, actually, he took a heavy touch. He did take a heavy touch, because where we were sat in the stand, we were side on, so he's basically running right in front of us, and it's the touch before he shoots. It's just a bit further away from his body, and I think there's a moment where you can see him kind of hesitate, and it's like he thinks the keeper's going to get it, and then he's like, "Oh shit, the keeper's not coming. I'm still in," and then he kind of goes again. And I think it just kind of ruins the momentum for him.
You wonder how much pressure gets added on as well to the fact that we've not scored a goal for 3 games now, 3 direct games. It must play on your mind a little bit to think, oh my God, we really need a goal.
Yeah.
Especially something like that when you have got time to think about it.
Well, we'll apply the Cody David rule to this one, which is that if you do it in a derby, then everything that came before gets completely forgotten about. So if Finlay Pollock comes through on a 1-on-1 and scores that against Dunfermline in front of
Listen, we've still got to play Hamilton this season, so you'll get a double later on.
There's that as well. Allan, just to come back to you, 68th minute, Barry Robson makes his first change, but it's a bit of a surprise one. Liam Dick comes on, as you mentioned, for Stevenson. What did you make of that? Did you maybe think that was a bit odd one? David Martindale actually called it out in his interview. He was asked whether that was sort of a reactionary change that we had based on their substitutions. So do you think that might have been the case?
Possibly. I think a part of it is just kind of in the same way Blair mentioned with Pollock playing a lot of minutes. Will Stevenson's played a lot of football recently, and let's face it, for a professional footballer, he's a good age. Like, so there must be an element of tiredness there, and just as I said, Livingston were kind of coming into the game at that point. They were creating more chances, so I think it was probably just about getting some fresh legs in the back line, really, and not necessarily settling for 0-0, but you get to that stage where when you're within sight of that point, it becomes more of a sickener to lose it from there. So while trying to create stuff yourself, you do want to just make sure you're still tight at the back. So I think it was just about getting some fresh legs on.
Yeah, the change itself. I mean, Stevenson, I think when he's fully fit again, it's one of those ones where you naturally want him up and down the pitch. Again, I know that we've sort of questioned whether that's his best role, given sort of football in general in terms of his legs. But yeah, just I think that it was an assured change, and because Liam Dick, I know that he didn't have a good game last weekend, to say the least, but then in general his form's generally been quite consistent. You can sort of see why he would be the type of player that Robson would want on the pitch.
Yeah. And he really has got his long throw working really well this season. Like, he's obviously been practicing a lot, so it gives you an extra wee kind of weapon in an attacking sense as well.
Yeah, I think it's much of a weapon against them, though, is it?
Well, there is that. You need to have the people to get on the end of it, of course.
And then by the time we hit the 80th minute, Blair, a double change. So Lewis Vaughan comes on for Finlay Pollock, and Lewis Gibson replaces Ewan Murray. Was it a bit of a surprise maybe to see Gibson coming on as a wing back for you in sort of place of obviously Murray comes off, and just a wee bit on Vaughan's performance as well, given you were at the game.
Yeah, I mean, I get the substitutions thing. I just don't know how I feel about any of it anymore. Like, because I was doing the same thing. I'm in the stadium and I'm giving it the do it sooner, doing it sooner. I'm not sure he's got an awful lot of options. He's still got the problem with Aidan Connolly where he doesn't actually seem to fit anywhere in the squad, which I get is a frustration. But Gibson is in kind of the same boat. He's just a bit more physical. So coming on as a wing back actually made a bit of sense for him. But you've got to remember, he's a young boy too. Like, what is he, 19? Do you know what I mean? He's not... He's no a seasoned professional coming on to kind of make you better. When you're in a game where you're... And we were last 20 minutes, but we're kind of up against it. They chucked the big boys on and definitely went more direct in the last 20 minutes or so. So he's got to think about, how do I counter that? So I actually disagree slightly in the sense that I think the Liam Dick substitution was reactionary. I think it was about getting a bit more height on, and then he realised that actually once Ewan Murray was injured, he had no option but to put Dick into centre half, which means he probably wouldn't have. I'm trying to think how to phrase this. I wonder if in hindsight he wouldn't have made the Stevenson substitution had he known Murray was going to go down injured, if that makes sense. Like, he'd kind of rolled that dice already. So then at that point, he's got to put Dick in at centre half. Who else is he going to put at left wing back? He's not going to put Aidan Connolly at left wing back. So he's got to go with Gibson. And I thought Gibson did fine. And Vaughan, like you say, Vaughan came on. I thought he did fine. I actually think he added... We've spoken about it briefly before, but he added a bit of energy. But actually, just I think his presence added a bit of energy. There was a bit of a lift from the crowd. There's a bit of a lift from the players. I thought, in particular, Dylan Easton, the last 20 minutes or so, he almost earned himself a man of the match performance in the last 20 minutes. I thought he was absolutely brilliant, running like a madman, covering acres of ground to make up for anything that he could. And it was really nice to see him and Vaughan linking up again. There was the one where Easton nicked the ball off. I can't remember who it was. It was one of the fullbacks from Livingston, but he nicks the ball off his toes and rolls it into Vaughan, and Vaughan has the kind of speculative shot, but I think he had to shoot. He was too far from goal, really, to make much of a run into it.
The thing with that is that if there is going to be any player that does that for Raith Rovers, it's going to be Lewis Vaughan that gets that back in the back of the net. So, yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah, just I thought all round it was I'd love, maybe I wouldn't love to know. I'd love to know what Robson's got to work with. But at the same time, I think I'm probably better not knowing, because it'll maybe make me not sleep at night as well. That's what I do.
There's an idea for Club 1883 for the members for the next one. Just a full injury assessment report for members.
Totally.
I think it kind of goes to show again what you were saying earlier, that Sean Byrne's clearly not fully fit.
Clearly not.
Because otherwise, you leave Liam Dick at left back, you put Doherty back into centre half, and you put Sean Byrne in the middle. So he's clearly not ready to be going into that kind of game.
I've also wondered as well. There's a lot of I also am kind of at the same thing with subs and stuff like that as well. But I do wonder. Like last night, you did have Sean Byrne just back for injury, Lewis Vaughan just back for an injury, Aidan Marsh potentially carrying something. So you're already whittling it down to like 4 guys that could have potentially came on. And so I can imagine he probably is having to watch, especially with all the quick games and quick concession as well, that he's having to kind of not really do too hard training to try and keep everyone ticking over. But I'm more interested when we get to the end of the season and what he does with this squad, because there's a lot of people saying that already they don't think that Robson's going to be able to get the right tune out of this squad. And like, well, at the end of the day, he'll decide. He's going to have had, by the time we get to the end of the season, 4 months of working with this team.
Yeah.
By that time, he's absolutely made his decision of what he wants to do going forward, who's going to work in that and who's not going to work in that.
I think he's made those decisions already.
The first thing he'll do is deal with the ones that aren't going to work with that, so that he can then go, right, I've got 12 players that are going to fit my system. We now need to go and sign another 12 to 15 boys to make up my squad, basically. So, and we do have some guys on contract, some guys running out of contract, but I am really interested to see what he does this summer, because I know I was one of the ones that wanted Barry Robson in the door at the time, but I think some folk are already seem to be not writing him off, but just really heavily questioning him at every point. And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, 2 of this squad are his players. One of them's not even played yet, George Cattell. So, like, the others, Aidan Marsh, I don't think was a Barry Robson signing. I think that's completely been lined up by Neil Collins. Like, the fact that it came from Barnsley, he'd worked under Collins at Barnsley. I don't think Barry Robson even knew who Aidan Marsh was.
No.
And I don't think that Barry Robson really had a say in Jamie Gullen coming either.
Oh, see, that I'm not so sure about. I think Robson was probably... I would imagine it's been a case of there's fucking nobody out there. There is nobody. We can we can go after Adaloy and chuck some money at a boy who's probably going to crock himself in 20 minutes. Or there's this boy, Jamie Gullen, who used to be here. He's not an out-and-out goal scorer. He's not a 20-goal-a-season striker. But fans love him. Get him in the door. Players love him. Yeah, like he'll do you a job. And I think Gullen's been a great signing again. Like, he's been so good.
I think he's off the ball, and also in terms of protecting the ball. Yeah. I think he's a different player completely. And maybe over in Ireland, that's clearly something that he's worked on. But I do agree that Robson probably did give the green light on. He would deal with, like, he would have Jamie Gullen. I just don't think he really knew much about Jamie Gullen, and probably we've been the ones that have went, look, Jamie's looking for a club back in Scotland, and we need a forward. Like, what do you think? And then he's probably then went and watched a few clips and went, right, let's just bring him in, because we need bodies anyway. But I don't think at the end of the day he went, oh, I know Jamie Gullen's free.
That's fair, yeah.
That's the way that was. Yeah. That was more the way that I was looking at it. It's only really Josh Ray and George Cattell that he's really had a full say in.
I do agree as well. We were chatting last night about the summer transfer window or whatever, and I do kind of look at it, and I am really intrigued, is the best word I can give it, because I don't know what Barry Robson wants in a squad yet. Like,
runners.
You got a feeling, runners. Well, that's the thing. But he's going to need goal scorers, and he's going to need. Do you know what I mean? He's going to need... I actually wonder if we're going to go get some big boys in, like get some big, tall centre halves and actually play the Championship the way the Championship plays. Like, but yeah, really intrigued.
I think as well, you add in there's the younger lads, guys like Kai Montague and Lewis Gibson in there as well. Again,
Yeah.
Gibson's not had as much game time. Montague's had game time in phases.
Yeah, but they're
Before-
teenagers, eh?
Yeah, but again, it's one of those ones where they will get the
Not good enough for
opportunities
old
if exactly it.
You wonder if he'll kind of dip back into use his contacts, like maybe look at Aberdeen, maybe give Alfie Babbage another chance at the Championship. He's done all right in League One with Cali Thistle since he went up there, or maybe someone like Fletcher Boyd, maybe being a year older, he might be, he's going to want to bring in people he knows, I would think, or at least he knows a bit about them and what they can do.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, before we get on to the summer, we've still got a good few games left before we reach that point. And we've not even talked about the end of this game yet. So Livingston, the two real big moments for them. The first one, Scott, was that they actually got the ball in the net, Robbie Muirhead, but adjudged to be offside. What did you make of that? Do you think it was the right call?
I am still mixed minds with this because obviously it was more. I think it was more. I was questioning it again after seeing Martindale's post match because he was going on what the fourth official was telling him about why it's been disallowed, and it was to do with like it being a deflection and not a deliberate header. Now, at first when I watched it, I was like, "Well, Deco has gone up to try and header it, so I don't think it." But then it's the actual deflection of the shot that is meant that the ball's then pinged up into the air, that he's then like reaching for it with his head. And then, but McGowan absolutely is stood behind our players and is offside. From the angle that you can see from the Raith TV highlights, he's behind everyone else, so he has to be offside. But the only confusing thing for it is are you classing it a deflection? Are you not? Because Deco definitely does attempt to play the ball. It's not like it's just hit him sort of thing. So I get where Martindale was trying to say that it wasn't really a deflection, but I think we just got lucky. The referee decided on that night, that given moment, that it wasn't a goal, because I think you could argue that other referees would have given it, or just linesmen would have just left.
I'm sorry, like. I've looked at this 5 or 6 times. The ball moves forward from a Livingston player. It deflects off of, is it Fordyce that's on the floor, I think, or Easton maybe, and it bounces up, and Dick is leaning back and catches it with his head. But Dick hasn't, like, I always thought, maybe it's just my interpretation of it, but I always thought like the phase of play was about the kind of directional movement of the ball. And the ball is moving towards our goal. The fact that Dick kind of gets a wee touch on it, he's already offside. Dick wouldn't have headed it. If he wasn't standing there, Dick would have ducked and let the keeper catch it. Dick's only headering it because he's there. So he's interfering with play. So he's offside. I honestly don't get why there's any debate. But it's just me. Like, it just feels for me like he's offside from the minute the ball moves, and he is never at any point onside. So the fact that one of our players knocks it onto him in that passage, he's only heading it because he's there.
And that's good enough for me. Moving on.
Absolutely agree. 100% agree with that.
Just like Martindale's just clutching it in straws.
That sort of like confusion of like deflections or the way that the ball's like skipped off of somebody's head. That goal reminds me a little bit. Obviously, it was slightly different. Our second goal at Easter Road in the Scottish Cup, like 10 years ago. Do you not mind there was confusion?
Aye.
Nobody knew if it was a goal or not.
Hibs,
not even the officials knew if it was a goal.
The
and then everyone's just kind of running about looking at each other, and then eventually the ref goes, "No, it was a goal."
Aye, because
Not quite as bad as Govans at Linlithgow, right enough, but
one at
where
Hibs
it was given, then disallowed, then given again, then disallowed again. It's like,
the Hibs one was particularly strange because the lino had sort of flagged that it was disallowed, and then the referee's like, "Nah, I don't really care about that. Back to the centre circle we go." And then the Hibs fans are all giving it the way, and then the Rovers fans just turn around and give it right back, celebrating.
The referees whistling HEA RTS all the way back up to the halfway line.
Oh, what a game that was.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last instant of the game, Allan, just to come back to yourself, Livingston, a dubious penalty claim. Josh Ray going up for a ball. What did you make of that on the highlights?
He punches the ball. Like, he's got every right to go. I remember, I think I put something in the group chat at the time because, like, Martindale was jumping about like a loon. I know he does anyway, but I'm like, the ball's there to be won. Josh Ray goes up, punches the ball cleanly. Fair enough, he catches the guy, but I genuinely don't even think if that had been the other end, I wouldn't have even been claiming for that. Genuinely wouldn't. And I'm someone who'll claim for just about anything.
I'm all happy with the fact
there.
I'm just happy that he did. He definitely did catch Muirhead, but it was after he punched the ball.
I mean, you get medals for punching Muirhead, not
I'm all for him decking Muirhead in the...
I was going to say, when is punching Robbie Muirhead a bad thing? I'm sorry. No. Not in any world I want to live.
Well, he did us a solid on Friday, so we can give him that.
Yeah,
but that's the extent of the generosity that he's going to get from this podcast.
I'd say he's a guy you'd take in the Rovers team as well, but he's the kind of guy that you know if we ever signed him, he'd be pish for us.
He's to be fair, I said that last night, he's decent. I feel like he's stepped up a level since he's went to Livy. He is better, but he is towing a caravan. Like, oh my God.
I think that if we'd signed him last summer, I would have been fine with it. But now that Barry Robson's in, he's like the antithesis of a Barry Robson player, eh? They'd be having fights on the touchline. Wouldn't they be podcast members?
I said run!
Exactly.
You imagine he inherits a team with Muirhead on one side and Chalmers on the other. It would have been like...
Anyway, so full time comes about. Just a wee bit to talk about. There's been a bit talking about Barry Smith's post-match interview. Blair,
Barry Smith. That's a Freudian slip for you.
Barry Robson's post-match interview called out and caught in 4K there. What did you make of that, Blair? Just obviously you were talking about earlier the HD of it all and everything on that front.
That was me because I'm going to put myself in the record here and say I haven't watched it. I will not watch it. I won't watch his pre-match, and I won't watch it. I couldn't give a shit. And I know that this is where Duncan and I are on not just opposing views. We are polar opposites on this. I couldn't give two tosses what that man says on a camera, on a microphone. Couldn't care less. And I get that it makes his job easier to have the fans on side and have that communication and that connection with the fans. It will make it easier because they're less likely to turn. But I'm sorry, he could be giving great interviews week in, week out. If we get beat 4-0 every week, they'll turn on him anyway. He can be giving shit interviews every week. And if we win 4-0 every week, the fans will love him anyway. For me, all it does is it speeds up the point at which he's going to get booed or slows down the point at which he's going to get booed. He will be judged solely on his football. I think we've got, as Rovers fans, relatively short memories because I lived through John McGlynn twice. Could not do an interview. Grant Murray, first and foremost. Oh my God, that's what he said. I mean, do you remember Kevin Cuthbert when he was at the interview that he gave? Jesus. And then we got spoilt because we had Ian Murray, and for all his flaws or otherwise, Ian Murray was a great communicator. Very, very good in front of a camera, very calm, very kind of assured. He spoke well. I remember watching his interviews and thinking, Jesus Christ, that's exactly what we said. That's amazing. He's actually speaking the truth. And he sticks his fingers in the ears and he's making fun of the pars. I honestly, it's all for me, that's icing on a cake. And if you ice a cake that's made of crap, then it's not going to be very nice. So, genuinely, I haven't watched it and I've given up on his interviews. I'll be honest, I gave up after the 1883 Q&A. He's just not a great communicator for me. I feel like he doesn't want to do them. I feel like it's Barry Smith. You said it yourself, Robbie. He is Barry Smith. He doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, to be honest, I only watched it because I was coming on here and I thought, well, I'm going on the podcast. We're probably going to talk about it. I'll watch it. on the whole, I actually agreed with most of what he said. And it's easy to take the XG comment for Saturday out of context. He wasn't saying we deserve to win on Saturday because our XG was higher. First of all, I don't believe for a second our XG was higher anyway.
It wasn't.
Secondly, who gives a shit about XG anyway? Apart from guys who like to make Twitter pages about it. But, I mean, all he was saying was that, the difference between the teams on Saturday was individual mistakes. He's still putting the blame on our team for the defeat on Saturday, which is fair enough. And I think he made comments. Okay, the one thing I will take about him is he said, the way we play, we're always going to score goals. It's like, well, mate, you can't say that after we've just had our third game in a row without scoring goals.
Yeah.
But I think what he almost means is we'll make chances if we could just get some fit bloody strikers up there to take them.
Yeah, it's again, there's been a lot made of it. I think that it's always one of those ones, and I think that you've hit the nail on the head there. The proof's always going to be on the pitch, really, in terms of how it is. And whatever you say, reality, people are going to be able to look at stats themselves, the basic stats of like shots on target, etc., and sort of see what's there.
See, just one final point on it, just on the whole interview thing as well. I felt, and I feel like I'm digging him out here, but Duncan made a comment on the post-match about the post-match interview and about not liking, and he said himself like he's at risk of just kind of hating everything that he says, and I get that, and it's a personal thing, totally get that. But see, when we're prepared to do a podcast an hour after a 4-0 defeat, I'll criticise Barry Robson for giving an interview an hour after a 4-0 defeat. Like, there's a reason that we wait until the Sunday, because you get to kind of just go, oh my God, that was so bad. He's got to come out. He's been in that changing room, berating the players, going through them for the mistakes that they've made, and he's come out. He's still raging, and he's given an interview. Like I say, I just think it's pointless.
Don't get Bob excited with the thought of podcasts on the Saturday tea time.
No happening.
It's
I'm in the pub.
I think that it's a really important point to make, though. It's like one of those things where you just view a sort of snapshot. It's kind of the same with podcasts as well, in a way. Just in the sense that, like, you get something that's said in a moment and can be any context, and then the next thing you know, it's pulled up, clipped, and that's it. That's the way it's framed.
Exactly.
And after a bit of time, it might be different. But yeah, it's that's unfortunately just the way that things operate. To take a bit of a different tack for our final question before we get into a game of Should McStay or Should Dargo. Scott, how important do you think it is that we've got a free weekend, given everything that we've spoken about this evening and just the general state of the league at the moment, just with how things are?
I think it's really important, to be honest. The fact that we just had back-to-back midweek games, just good to get. Obviously, we would have loved to have been in the next round of the Scottish Cup, but when you're going to wait Celtic, not going to happen. So I think it's just the fact that, look, we've played a lot of games. There's guys clearly carrying knocks, probably do need a couple of days off to just chill out, recuperate, and then, I'm sure they'll be back in again probably. As far as I'm aware, I think I heard they were in for like a recovery session today, and then they're off, I think, until Sunday or something. So like they're at least getting a few days off to sort themselves out, and then it's all things go again for the derby. And I mean, what a perfect game to come back to be honest. It's a home game at home to Dunfermline. It's been
Friday Night Lights.
It's been on the BBC. Go on.
I like how you said Friday Night Lights, and his screen, Scott's screen, just illuminated there.
I think I will be surprised if Louis Vaughan does start, but at the end of the day, he loves a goal against Dunfermline.
He really does.
I don't think you could ever rule it out, but I just think the fact he's only played, two little 10, 15-minute cameos, I think he might get a longer sort of stint in the second half of that game. But the fact that he's continued with the Pollock and Gullen sort of situation, I think he'll be continuing to go with that. Unless one of them's got some sort of knock, I think the two of them will just keep continuing as they are. But overall, I'm just glad we do have that free weekend. We can now watch, I think AJ are playing Hamilton, which is quite a big game in terms of our sort of situation. hopefully
Got,
Falkirk can at least put a few past Dunfermline, because then that'll keep their goal difference a lot worse than ours as well, if it ever comes down to that. But
Morton here as well, so that's another pretty
Yeah,
good chance for the team
play,
around us to hopefully drop point. Morton are playing here, yeah.
So well, you would back Ayr and Falkirk both to win their games, but at the end of the day, it's the championship, so anything could happen.
Yeah, I mean, you can't focus on it too much, can you? It's just, I think that next weekend, the game against Dunfermline and Derby is going to be the real intriguing one, just in terms, given everything that happened before, particularly with the way that the last Derby turned out. I'm sure that Rovers, everyone connected, will be keen to exact some revenge against them.
First time my choice of tunes will be played live on national TV as well.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Anyway, let's have a game of Should McStay or Should Dargo to round things off. Obviously, just to reiterate, there will be no post-match podcast, given that there's no post-match this weekend. So we'll not be back until next Thursday. So we're going to make the most of this. Yeah, we do. A rare weekend. So get that one in there now. Okay, so this is going to be...
Do not tempt Raith Rovers to do something mad to make us do an emergency podcast. Just don't.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very fair point as well. Right, 6 clues about a former or present Rover. So I will kick us off now. Just give me 2 seconds. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to jot down my numbers here. Now, because I was expecting this to be a bit of a low-key podcast, given the Livingston game and the accounts and not much to talk
it's a
about.
belter.
He's gone full Leslie, I think.
I've not gone full Leslie. I would never go full Leslie. I can't go known going full Leslie. But question number 1. During my career, I have played against Antonio Rudiger, Jordan Henderson, Virgil van Dijk, Granit Xhaka, Harry Maguire.
Whoa. I can't write that fast. Rudiger.
Van Dijk.
Henderson. Xhaka. Maguire. Harry Maguire.
Xhaka? Who's Xhaka?
Granit
Granit
Xhaka.
Xhaka. It was at Arsenal.
Oh, yeah, Xhaka, okay. Maguire.
Andrea Belotti. Kevin McCarthy.
You've named all of them and then him.
John McGinn. Yannick Carrasco.
Jesus Christ, how many players are you going to name here?
Sander
Name the
Vest-
guy. Sorry.
How many more we got? 5.
What?
Sander Vestergaard, Andy Robertson, Julian Draxler, Fabian Fry, Alexander Mitrovic, and Thorgan Hazard. These are both domestically and internationally. Any opening guesses? Played against. Just to recap them: Rudiger, Henderson, Van Dijk, Xhaka, Maguire, Belotti, McGinn, Carrasco, Vestergaard, McHattie, Robertson, Draxler, Fabian Fry, Mitrovic, and Thorgan Hazard.
I've decided not to write them all. I've just picked ones that I know loads about. So you said club or international, so we already know this is somebody that's played international football.
Yeah, it has to be.
And these are all players they played against, none of them with.
Played against.
I think we might have had him already, but I'm going to go Ryan Hardy. Played under 21s, didn't he? So.
Oh, yeah, that's a decent shout, actually. 21s as well. Just as a shout for 21s.
You also, I'm just looking at some of the players on the list. Some of them
Kevin Nisbet.
Kevin Nisbet.
Not a bad shout.
He went to the Euros, did he not?
Yep.
So played Mitrovic.
Oh, aye, the one's just passed, the one before.
Yeah.
Played in England as well, so possibly had a cup game against some of them.
Maybe.
It's kind of where I was going with Hardy, to be honest. Well, obviously played
I'm
in
trying to
England,
remember. I was at the Scotland-Holland game when it was over here last year. I can't mind if Nisbet was in that squad, because obviously that's where you would get like Van Dijk and that in. I'm just going to skip for now. I can't really think of somebody that's
Right.
worthwhile for an international anyway.
Clue number 2. My most faced opponents are Lewis Stevenson, who I've played against 16 times, then followed by Paul Hanlon, who I've played 12 times. That's across my whole career.
Now, I thought Blair came up with a really good one there with Kevin
That
Nisbet.
can't have been Nisbet.
This is somebody that's played a long time. Nisbet's not been, and he's had injuries as well, so I don't think that's Nisbet. This is somebody that's played top flight football most of their career then.
Well, bear in mind, if you play against them 4 times a season, that's potentially only 4 years, 3 and a bit with cup games as well. So
Jamie Walker? Did he get an international cap?
I was going to say maybe 21s, but I don't think he's ever played. I'm not sure if he's been in the squad.
Anyone for Scott and Allan? He did actually also play against Scott Allan, funnily enough.
No, I've not got anything else.
Scott, you got any guesses?
Just whilst we're not, it's kind of been left open in any position as well. You've no said anything about like goals or anything like that. So I really don't know. Jason Holt.
Jason Holt. Right.
Oh, that could be a good shout.
Okay, clue number 3. My career started in Scotland, but I've played across 5 different nations. Just going to double check that one, but according to Wikipedia.
Okay. I don't think Jason Holt's been here, there, and everywhere.
No. 5 different countries.
Yeah, 5 countries.
It's just ridiculous. All the names and then Kevin McCarthy. And it's probably played against McHattie when he was actually at Hearts, I would have thought.
Well, that's the thing. That's what took me away from Nisbet as well, because he's got to have played top flight 12 games against Hanlon and Stevenson. That's 4 seasons anyway.
Aye, without injuries for any of
Without,
them.
as I'm saying, without any injuries, it's got to be at least.
Struggling to think of players that have played for Rovers that have played in that many countries. The only one I could think is David Bates, but he's not going to have played against them that amount of times, I wouldn't have thought. And we've had him, but that doesn't mean we can't have him again, to be fair. But
Aye, has been an answer, eh?
that doesn't mean he can't
Yeah, I
have him
think he
again.
has,
I might go him anyway, just in case.
It doesn't rule it out, but I'm just now that I remember, I'm sure I have seen it on the list before.
Played with Germany, Belgium, Scotland, wherever the hell he is now. Sure, he's in like Denmark
By
or
the way,
something.
that's maybe not a bad shout, just in terms of the countries alone. He's had international caps as well, isn't he? He's had a full cap now.
He's had a few, had about 5 or 6 now.
Yeah. I'm going to go with David Bates just because I can't think of anyone else who's played for Rovers and played in a number of countries.
Anyone else?
You did say you were being awkward, so it would be just like that. Having someone we've already had would
So
fit.
was it It was 12 against Stevenson and 12 against Hanlon.
No, 16 against Stevenson and 12 against Hanlon.
Right, okay.
So I don't see him having played against
Also,
him.
if he's played in the top flight, it potentially means they only played 3 times in a season, depending if they were top and bottom 6.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Who's he?
That's even longer.
Well, he's played top flight for Aberdeen and Rangers, but also bear in mind Hibs have been in the Championship a couple of times during.
And
Hanlon
Bates
Stevenson's
wasn't
time
at
as well.
Rangers that long, either.
Nah.
I still think it's not a bad guess because he's played for Scotland. I just didn't have really. I've got nobody come out my head at all that's played international.
5 different countries.
We've not had that many folk play international football for us.
Did you say he started his career in Scotland?
Yes.
Aye.
He didn't say he was Scottish.
No, I've not ruled that out. I just think that we should know somebody that's played for international football for us.
So, to recap. Christ, this is a list.
We don't need all the players.
During my career, I've played against Rudiger, Henderson, Van Dijk, Xhaka, Maguire, Belotti, McGinn, Carrasco, Vestergaard, Robertson, Draxler, Fabian Fry, Kevin McCarthy, Mitrovic, Forgan Hazard, both domestically and internationally for all these opponents. My 2 most faced opponents are Lewis Stevenson, who I played against 16 times, and Paul Hanlon 12 times. My career started in Scotland, but I've played in 5 countries. Would you like clue 4?
Yeah.
I think so.
I have an
Clue 4.
idea.
In my career, I've played against Liam Dick, Callum Fordyce, Aidan Connolly, Sean Burns, Dylan Easton, Josh Mullen, Scott Brown, Robbie Thompson, John Potter, and Barry Robson. I've never played against Lewis Vaughan or Ross Matthews.
I've just put
because they only featured on the bench.
I've just put in the thing. In my career, I've played against all the current Rovers players and John Potter, basically.
The only player I can think of that's played in that many countries would be Rory McKeown. Because you've got New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, Scotland and England. I just don't know if he started in Scotland. And he's had international caps, I'm sure, for Northern Ireland.
Where was it that we got him from again?
Is it not Kilmarnock?
Uh,
So he played top flight.
and he played for us.
Would he have played
season
against
that
John Potter?
Hibs were in our league when he was with us. Because that was under... what's
That's
his
true.
name?
That's true. So that would be your Stevenson and Hanlon. It doesn't have to be top flight because they've been with them forever.
And that is
That's
4
a good
times.
shout, actually.
Any further guesses?
No.
Clue number 4. I made 72 appearances for Rovers over 2 seasons.
Oh,
Well, that would mean
yeah, I'm
he was
sticking with
in the
McKeown.
team most of the time that he was here.
Definitely
Yeah.
no David Bates. We made like 5 or something.
Clue
Aye.
number 5. I was announced on the same day as Mark Stewart signed for Rovers.
Probably
that
is.
would be cute then.
Yeah.
And clue number
That was
6.
that season.
I was born in Belfast, and my other clubs in Scotland have included Kilmarnock, Cowdenbeath, and Greenock Morton.
So is it? How's he played against all the players then? You're going to have to break that bit down for
John
us.
McGinn has to be Hibs.
Hibs for
Yeah.
McGinn. So McCarthy, obviously.
Yeah.
So with Van Dijk when he was at Killie, same with
Oh, it was his Celtic.
yep.
Aye.
Robertson
forgetting that.
was with Dundee United. John McGinn was with Hibs. Fabian Fry was
Robertson
actually with when he was with was it Bohemians over in Republic of Ireland when he was playing in the
Oh, he played in Europe.
Europa League. And then pretty much all the rest of them, he's played against Kieran Tierney as well, actually, when he was at Celtic, but I didn't chuck him in. All the rest of them are basically under 19s, 18s and 16s for Northern Ireland, just
All right,
across
okay.
like his time.
Yeah,
I don't know if he got under 21s caps, but he was the Should
Did he ever
McStay-
get full caps? I don't know.
No,
actually,
he
did
never got a full cap.
Did he not?
No. One of the other clues that I was actually going to have in there, but I think I'd spoken about this before, and it was too obvious. Is I actually played one of his teammates when he was with I think Bohemians was called Robbie Weir. Funnily enough, so
Right.
it was Crusaders. That's the team that he was with in Northern Ireland. So
It was the countries bit I got fixated on because I'm like, there's so few players that have played for the Rovers that have ever gone abroad.
Yeah.
So you're like Ian Williamson. Do you know what I mean you're Callum Elliott? There's a really small cohort that have ever gone abroad. Yeah, but to have played in 5 countries, I was like, that's a lot. I thought so. They've got to be close together. So Scotland, Ireland, England. Is that Australia and New Zealand?
Yep, Australia is where he's at just now. He's spent a bit of time over, I think, between 2019 to 2022 over in...
he was with Wellington, wasn't he?
Yeah, because that would have been during COVID as well that he was there, and they had a complete lockdown. So obviously, it must have been a bit of a surreal experience to go through that with him.
Yeah, he's kept in contact with Davy Hancock. They became quite good friends while he was here. He was a lovely guy, to be fair. Really, really, just a genuinely nice guy.
He just came across as being really good person across in terms of his interviews. I remember he got a lot of flack when he first started because he was playing next to Ross Perry, which obviously didn't really help. But then gradually just grew into the role, and then that belter against Morton in the league, which just absolutely swerved into the net.
Oh, that was a screamer.
Oh, aye.
Yeah.
You sort of saw the keeper try to go to his left, and then he had to try and come back to get the ball, but he was just no stopping that. So
that was up there with the other one that always the other end was the Tumulty one against Dundee.
He actually played with Tumulty. They were in the same team for Morton when he was there.
Ah, right, okay, yeah.
So, yeah, got a lot of time. He actually...
By the way, that'd be a decent right and left back right there.
I wouldn't mind if McEwen made a return back to Rovers at some point in the future.
I liked him.
He must
He's
be
still
a fair age now.
No, he's only 31.
Really?
There you go.
So
he's a young left back for us.
That's it. Anyway, that'll round us off for this evening. As I said before, we will have no podcast until the pre-match against Dunfermline, unfortunately. So we'll get a free weekend this weekend. But whatever you're doing, you have a good time. And thanks for listening.